chapter plan for book 2 of the litrpg series that I'm doing with Mountaindale Press. It's actually, book 2 is actually part of book 1. The way I wrote book 1, the editors and the publishers all felt that basically book 1 could be 2 books. I'd already written book 2, so that's now book 3, what I've since done is add another 50,000 words to book 1. That's now with the editors, or wait for the editors. I think it's another few more days until they can actually look at it. And then I am now taking the second half of book 1 and making it book 2, if that's not complicated enough. So what that has meant for me is that all the stats, all the skills, all the stuff that litrpg readers really like to read about, you know, the actual game aspects have all had to be rewritten, because May's basically got her skills, that's the main character, earlier. She's taken more culls, because basically this is a blood royale type game, book as well. So she's got kills earlier, which changes her standing on the scoreboard, which is sort of like a background thing going on. So now I've got to rewrite the second half of book 1 as now book 2. There's about 38,000 words, I think. So in order to hit the rough 90 to 100,000 words, I've got to add another 62,000 words to this story. So as you can see, I've added a lot more chapters at the start. The numbering's probably out in this Word document, because I've been, yeah, there you go. You can see how I've added all the different chapters. So I've added another 17 chapters at the start, and then we get into the chapters that are already written. What I normally find is that when I'm actually writing a book, where I do a chapter plan, I might say, an example here. Let's put a comma in there. So in this case, she says, whilst on the hunt, May comes across her old sewer company under attack from the beasts. She saves those she can, but fat is taken by them. Now, that chapter may well take 1 chapter, or I may well find that chapter 2 becomes chapter 2 and 3. And then depending on that, I'll then have to renumber the chapters. And so I may well find that even though I've done certain things, so for example here, look, I said she saves those she can, but fat is taken by them. That's character from book 1. So here I said May accepts the quest to hunt Mogwai and rescue Fat. So at this point I actually need to remind myself, so she's given a side quest to rescue Fat as part of the hunt. So she, obviously you can see she's now got 2 missions that she needs to do. The rewards for these missions aren't like what you would find in most litrpg books. She doesn't get masses of benefits or anything else like that. She might get something called biomass boost, because the way I've written these books is that I wanted to get around inventories. I don't want to have to write inventories. So what I've done is everyone has nanites in them, and when they're given when they reach the correct skill levels in their certain jobs, and that could be any job because everyone has nanites in this entire world, they are then able to form the tools that they need from the nanites in their body using biomass. If they have high biomass levels, that's great. As soon as they get to 0 biomass levels, any change they make comes from their own body, so it starts to damage their health. So if she's got the template for a submachine gun, her hand forms into a submachine gun, which is why the cover, which I haven't shown for book 1, is the way it is. Her hand is actually a shotgun. The shells are formed from the biomass within her body. It doesn't have a trigger, so it's not like she's aiming like this or anything else like that. When she uses a sniper rifle, it's projected onto a Russian monitor. She's just bracing her own arm, makes the think, squeezes the trigger. I have used squeezes the trigger because it's more of a metaphorical or metaphysical than literal thing. But that's what she does. She squeezes the trigger with a thought and sends the bullets down. However, they are also trained in book 1 to use physical objects, so that when their biomass is low, they can actually still continue to fight. Every colour, which is what they're called because it's called culling, this blood royale type game, is also given a physical knife. Obviously they want to try to avoid that as much as possible, so there are supply drops where they have to go to get biomass. They can consume food to get biomass, but all the time they're hunting each other across a massive city, which is populated. They're doing this amongst the populace. So think of it almost like, you could almost call it like Running Man as well. That's another one of the things that's kind of inspired this. Running Man, Blood Royale, the games, Blood Royale, the films. If you've seen the Japanese films, those involve school children being placed on an island and they have to kind of hunt each other down because apparently children have got out of control, and the government needs to show that it can control children. It's a bit of a weird thing, but hyper violent, a bit like my books. So they have, like I say, they have all these side quests. They have to get the biomass, that's where I was. I forgot what I was talking about. Because biomass helps them fuel to get more weapons to make them more effective. And as they go, or as she goes, she's kind of not happy that she's in this game. She doesn't want to be doing this, but in book 1 you find out she's a bit of a rebel, even though she's in a state, like a city-state or a planet. Actually, it's a planet-sized city, but the actual blood royale aspect is a little bit more localized. Yeah, she's a constant rebel, even though everything that you do is monitored. Bad behaviour is punished with fines and social standing deductions, whereas good behaviour is rewarded. So, the harder you work at your job, your employer can give you extra skills. So a chef might be able to just put their hands straight into a vat of boiling oil to pull something out. Or, they'll turn their hand into a knife. They'll have used knife skills. They'll also have, chef skills, which means they can, just chop their way through something, flip it around. They're doing all the sort of stuff that you see, the sushi chefs, flipping everything around, cutting things in the air, etc. Because that's their skills. However, if they start doing badly, then the employer can also then go, we'll take that away from you. People report on each other as well. What I call the Celestial Court, because I've kind of based this around a sort of a very futuristic. I wanted to go for a futuristic cyberpunk city. It's 10 miles high. There are May lives on the 3rd mile, I believe, and she's basically the whole point of this is called Ascension, because he's basically trying to get to the top 100 out of 1 million competitors in the culling, so that she can then ascend and she'll become a 10 miler. And the 10 milers are the rich people. So, being a 3 miler, she doesn't actually believe the sky's blue. She thinks that's a legend. There's constant drizzle and condensation from the way the city is built. Because even though there are open spaces, that might be 1 or 2 miles high, they're still encapsulated or enclosed by other parts of the city. So she's never seen the sky, and it's constantly, I call it conden rain, which is condensation rain, that, you know, that drizzles down quite often because of all the heating above and everything else like that. And then down below at the bottom you've got the 1 milers, and everything is a lot more decrepit down there. Basically, if you're into 40k Necromunda, that kind of sort of, you know, really decrepit. Although I haven't gone as bad as Necromunda does. You know, there is some sort of order down there. The Celestial Court, who are the rulers, with the, you know, the never end, or the never dying emperor, who no one has ever really seen. So, you know, it could well be that every year there's a new emperor. However, it's just the title of the emperor. You know, they still continue to run things down there. Everything is still monitored, but the further your social score slips, you can move further and further down the miles. So it's always hard. You know, it's much easier to get dropped out of society than it is to earn your way back into society. And due to her actions, May's only choice, after a few traumatic things happen to her in book 1, is to join Culling. So book 1 starts off with a lot of side quests and everything else like that. Her becoming indentured and, you know, sent into the sewers to work. She then joins the Culling, and now I'm on the second half of book 1, which is now book 2. Basically trying to plot out how the story goes. So what I also have, so, you know, I write out a chapter plan, because I used to be a pantser, but it's a lot harder to pants when, or for me it is, when trying to write a book that's going to have about 100,000 words in it. So I have the chapter plan, and then I also use, let me just close down a few things. So I also then have a spreadsheet. So this is, I'm calling it Rebel right now. I don't know what I'm going to call it, because I did have 3 titles lined up, but because now I've got 2 books already written and haven't written the middle book, I don't actually know what. Oh, just seen someone's lopping a load of branches off next door, and they're all falling into our garden. Brilliant. Just hoping they don't lop our tree. Anyway, so yeah, I've just called it Rebel. You can see here, though, you know, how she gets skills, the titles she gets, the kills she makes, running total of culls, creatures, and everything else like that. So this one is actually in numerical order. Currently I've got 33 chapters. Each chapter can, generally the publisher Manningdale prefer to have about 1,500 to 2,500 words a chapter. Generally no longer. If I go over 2.5, I have to then try to split it down, which can actually make it difficult, because you might get to a point where you think, oh, this chapter needs 2.8, but then that would be 2 chapters of 1,400 each, which is too short for a chapter. So I try to kind of go for the middle ground, and sometimes if I do have a short chapter, I might have to make it up with a longer chapter. You know, I try to stick to the 2.5 limit as much as possible. Sorry, I'm just checking my phone to see if see who's watching, because for some reason it says I've got people watching, but I haven't been told what's going on. I'm still learning all this, by the way. This is the first time I've done a creative thing. Yeah, they are lopping the branches into my garden. Right, I have to go and clear that up later. Trying to learn how to do everything. Don't know who the viewer is, but someone is. Never mind. Anyway, I've only got eight followers. It's probably none of them. Yeah, so trying to keep the chapters. So 33 chapters. Let's just do a quick calculation, because my maths is absolutely terrible. Yeah, so 33 chapters is only going to come in at 82,500 words. I've got roughly, like I said, I think I've got roughly 36 to 38 already written. But that does mean I've got a lot to add. However, the chapters that I've written, so it looks like from chapter 17 onwards, where I've already written stuff, I can expand upon them. There's going to be some base building in this one. So the first book is mostly your typical, I don't want to call it fantasy RPG, but let's think of, well, it's like lit FPS, so using the Russian switching literally first person shooter, but with quests and skill ups and everything else like that. I should also say, like I said, also that everyone gets rewarded if they do the job right. So everything about May's life is what we would consider to be a game. If you do well, you skill up. Everyone skills up. So basically, this book, I started writing it. Well, I got the contract at 20 books to 50k Edinburgh last June. Started writing the original one of this book, what was it, June or July? As soon as pretty much whilst I was there. So I basically pitched to Dakota Kraut, having met him, known him for about 2 days. I just sent a pitch over because I was writing in his writing room, because it was something I've been mulling over in the background, in the back of my mind, and he accepted it. So I started writing it there. Then straight after Edinburgh, nipped home down to Devon in Exeter, collected the family, and then pretty much the day after drove up to the lakes, started writing there. A couple of days later in the lakes, I slipped on some rocks, and as you can see, my fingers no longer straighten. Basically, I slipped, hit the rock like that with my full weight, and really broke my fingers. But that did not stop me from writing. So I basically broke through and was hitting 7,000 words a day with two severely broken fingers and a lot of swelling. Got those 2 books done, and I'm now, like I say, 1 and 2. 1 is now being split, so I'm doing this one. So the plan was at one point they would all 3 have been published now. Unfortunately, kind of things went to pot pretty much for everyone around the world, and because of what I would say is an appalling response to things down here, I formed a community group which went from myself and my wife fairly rapidly to 150 volunteers on the books. So I contacted Matt and Dale and said that I was going to put the writing on hold, which I did for about 2.5 months whilst running the group, getting everything sorted. Now with everything easing down, I've stepped away, so I'm able to concentrate on this one. So it'll be interesting to see where we come, when I actually manage to get this published. But yeah, so that was a bit of a rant, and not a rant. What's the word? Ramble. There you go. I kind of rambled around the conversation there. So here you go. You can see a title. I mean, this chapter here is she kills so many Mogwais that she gets Mogwai Bane and Sonic Boom. Right, so Mogwai Bane is something that a previous character that she's got, previous character that she knew in book 1 had Mogwai Bane. So basically you have to kill Mogwais are creatures. Well, Cloudy Knight followed me. Hello, Cloudy. Although, funnily enough, I believe he was already following me. Anyway, so you can see she gets Mogwai Bane, where you have to kill a certain number of creatures. Mogwai are sort of like a Chinese mythological creature. In this gamified version, they're still mythical, but they're kind of very common. So just like any RPG where it goes, you know, if you go and kill the rare creature, but you always come across these rare creatures, kind of taken that trope, played with it a little bit. And then Sonic Boom, which is a special attack, which is conferred because she's got Mogwai Bane. It enables her to then to do things. So I've got Mother Mogwai or Mogwai. I'll be changing the name of that. You know, where you see me put capitals is usually because either I can't remember the name of the character, or I'm just using a holding title. So Mother Mogwai, I don't know what I'll call it in the end. Maybe Brood Mother, something. Just like when she was in book 1, she fights some vampires, Jiangxi, which are the Chinese ones. I went with Progenitor as the name of the kind of the parent. So obviously I can't use that again now, so now I've got to use a different name. There you go. So, oh, there's a bit of a spoiler there. Let's just dodge that bit. None of this is spoiling. It says I'm dropping load of frames, but hopefully not. Oh. Yeah, only scan. Why I'm getting notified that I've got people following me. Oh, okay. Strange. I'm getting duplicate following. Doesn't matter. Oh, okay, so Cloudy said, wouldn't OneNote be a better tool? That way you can link and reference names as you update them. Quite possibly. However, I don't think I've used OneNote. So what I actually do sometimes use is, I also use, actually, sorry, no, I do use OneNote, but I didn't link like that. So, hang on, let me bring my OneNote up. Right. Okay, so there was me talking about one book. So here you go. So this is Allendale Press 1 and 2, or 3 now. You see there's a chapter plan which is out of date. I do use OneNote. So Hellhound is my urban fantasy which I have already published. Beware is a book where I'm 60,000 words in. Dawnslayer is the third book of that. Then I have research, I have some short stories, and as you can see I have absolutely stacks of projects planned. So this is my Shadow Company. I'm probably going to change them, that name from Shadow Company, just because I don't think it's quite working. It might be Ghost Company or I don't know, going to move it. This is the Shadow Company book that I am currently writing. So Shadow Company is a military science fiction, or near military, special forces game. I've written a special forces game to be used for management companies. Just need to see if I can actually get it off. Blaze Maximilian. These are the first fiction books I got off the ground. Got me into the writing back in, or into writing fiction back in, oh crikey, 2015, maybe earlier, can't remember. I also do writing for Red Scar. Red Scar actually produce the Devil's Run RPG. Let me just grab that, but I'm going to put myself out. So that's the Devil's Run RPG. Sorry, I'm absolutely terrible at mirror imaging. I did the lore for that, for some of the factions. I'm more of a lore person than I'm a rules person. So I do writing for them. So this will be actually Team Sealy 6, which is going to be a magical, as you can see. It's an elite unit of Fey operators. What I'm going to have to do, Cloudy, is actually work out how I can link and reference names as I update them in OneNote. Didn't know about that. Desperate Times, that's my 49ers stuff. As you can see, I've been using research on Call of Duty perks and everything else like that, see how they did it, because I'm going to be remastering the Desperate Times series. Shardverse, massive project. Death Driver is something I started writing for Patreon. I have a Patreon, this is one of my free ones. Think Again, Mad Max, Gaslands, all that kind of stuff. Tyrannosaurus Rex. So yeah, we're talking mechanized dinosaurs, cyborg dinosaurs, but much larger because, as you can see here, she actually sits in the skull of the Tyrannosaurus Rex that she's piloting. So in order for a human to be able to sit inside the skull and then send signals via control rods into the creature's brain to get it to do what you want, it's obviously got to be much bigger than normal. Dungeon Delvers was a game, screen sharing, lower resolution desktop. The actual settings for this, I think I like 400. I've got really low resolution on this because the laptop I'm working on isn't the best. Bunkerverse, this is 3 stories which were published in 3 different short story anthologies, but they all tie in. The first one was a play on a story written by the Brothers Grimm called Death's Messenger, and I then built upon that into other anthologies that came out. That's something that I do a lot with my stories. If I write a short story, I'll then try to tie it in, so the Shardverse actually ties into the Outer Rim. It's a lot, much earlier. In fact, the Bunkerverse could also tie into that as well if I wanted to. I know an actor called Clemso who's in a lot of Star Wars and James Bond films, and he has such a Star Wars name that I thought it was very suitable for him being in Star Wars, so I started to write a series of short stories around him. Ministry of Thought. Now this is another game I came up with. Basically it's a dead drop game, utilising geocaching, USB websites, meta drops, videos, etc., which people would have to find as they kind of went around. It'd obviously be quite local to Exeter, unless I could find a way of expanding things, but yeah. Black Library, I've done some submissions for Black Library, and what I'll probably do is take these books and then drop them into one of the other things I've come up with. Bastard the Ninth. This is all based around, I was ill with kidney stones. Well, I still am ill with kidney stones. I've been having them for 7 years, but at one point I was very ill and was off work for 6 odd months on some serious medication, and I read all of the Jack Reacher series, and even though I can't remember much of them because, like I say, I was on a lot of drugs, it stuck with me. So I like Roman history. I live in a Roman city, and the idea came to me of having a retired centurion up in Hibernia, which is Scotland, being granted a parcel land over in Dacia, which is the furthest you can get from Hibernia at the time I'm setting this book. And his horse is called Bastard, and Bastard gets stolen, and so the centurion and his trusted lieutenant are basically on a never-ending quest to get the centurion's horse back so that they can just go and enjoy their retirement. But as it happens, they wander into lots of adventures and situations that they find themselves into, rather like Jack Reacher, where he just wanders, but in this, I will be absolutely wrecking history. And so in book one, he is going to come across Robin Hood. In book two, he'll probably come across King Arthur as they constantly go along. And yes, the name Maximus Mortis is a sign of what's to come, because he just can't help keeping out of trouble. But when he does get into trouble, he does what he knows best, which is takes out the enemy. Gangsters versus aliens. Now I wrote one book, one short story, which is in the Chip Shop of Horrors, I believe it was called, and it's basically about a criminal who comes across. He's called Neville, not exactly the hardest name, but he's an absolute piece of shit, and he comes across the fact that a takeaway is being run by an alien who is killing humans and feeding them to us, and also to other aliens. And so Neville can't quite get anyone to believe him, because when the evidence always gets destroyed. So this is all about Neville on his quest to save the planet from aliens, whilst the police and everyone else like that don't believe that he's actually acting in good. So there's going to be lots of to and forth with the police, and he basically fights a one-man war using his criminal contacts to assist where he can. It's very much inspired by a TV series I saw where a guy is constantly fighting aliens, but when you kill them, they're going to glow red. It was a very 1960s. They glow red and disappear, so he's never got any proof that there's this great big alien conspiracy, but they're everywhere. It's almost like they live, but without all the sort of stuff where, you know, people are having things broadcast to them. So Seas of Fire, if you think of Hornblower, Honor Harrington, Master and Commander, all that kind of stuff, but instead on a planet which is technically in the far future, but still very set in the period of Nelson and Trafalgar, you know, the 19th century. But the ships fly, and the sea, instead of seas, it's all lava. So they basically all live on a planet dominated by lava on the slopes of volcanoes and stuff. Yeah, very Hornblower. Black Sheep was a pitch I did for Black Library, and is based on a penal battalion of pilots, a regiment. So they fly planes and bombers, and what I'll be doing is probably dropping that into the 49ers universe at some point. Entity is based around the fact that Queen Elizabeth I is a vampire and the Pope is a demon. The Entity are the Catholic Church's assassins, and it's a war between the vampire court of England and the demonic court of the Pope. Nice and simple. Dirk is again, you know, it's a sort of a swashbuckling fantasy. Challenger Swift. These are a couple of submissions I made. Can't remember if they got published or not. I think they were accepted, but the book might not have been published just yet. And that's a steampunk. I just like the name Challenger Swift. Chaucer's Tale. I was actually going to adapt Chaucer's story, put it into a science fiction. I was looking at doing it as a 40k story because you know, all the pilgrimages and everything, but I can drop that into my Shardverse stroke Outer Rim stuff. So I think 40k Star Wars, Star Trek, etc., with a bit of Western chucked in. Blutrinker, one of these is in the anthology Rouse and Toten, book 1, and it's set in this alternative Second World War where Germany has been able to create vampires, well, technically vampires, and Russia uses zombies. So basically played off the sort of the stereotypes of Nazi Germany and communist Russia in the Second World War. Jigs was a fantasy game or science fiction game I created absolutely years ago, and then I saw Starship Troopers with the great big rock and the insects, and I was absolutely gutted because I had big rocks being thrown at Earth by insects, and that was before I had ever known of Starship Troopers, even as a book. Dungeon Delvers 2, yep, that's an RPG game. Strange cat wandering past. Tokyo Drift, that's another 49ers book. Modern Day Robin Hood. It's going to be titled Rob in the Hood, and will be a military fiction sort of book with a retired British Army sniper facing off against a guy called the Sheriff in sort of futurised Nottingham, and it's the battles between Rob in the Hood, against this drug dealer trying to stop the drug deals. So I've just kind of transported the story. Hyperscape. I've written a couple of short stories for Hyperscape, and just going to see how that goes. That's a game by Ubisoft. And then Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I'm a member of the Delta Company Special Activities Detachment for Ubisoft, the Ghost Recon Breakpoint game. I've written these 4 short stories. They're actually kind of a lot longer than a chapter in length, and they're stories that I'm just developing as I go. Why there's nothing there, I don't know what's going on with why things aren't going. But Hunter Hunted actually got turned into a comic, or the first chapter was anyway, turned into a comic, which then Ubisoft took and turned into a guided reading experience with kind of music and stuff in the background. And so one of my projects is going to be to turn that hopefully into an audio play script and see if people within the Special Activities Detachment will actually want to do anything with it. So yeah, there's a quick breakdown as to my writing. I've been talking for nearly 40 minutes and haven't actually done much writing apart from tweak something. So anyway, let's just drag that off. Drop it down. Yeah, I've actually got, it always says I'm dropping a load of frames, mostly because, like I say, this laptop's a bit naff. But I do need to work out, according to Cloudy, how to show a lower resolution, but this technically, I believed, was the lowest resolution. I'll have to try to work that out, see if I can lower it even further. The reason I use Google Spreadsheets, Google Sheets, whatever it's called, is because that's the favoured way of doing things. Within Mountain Dell, we do all our editing in Google Docs as well, but I find that I have issues on my laptop, so I basically take the comments of the editors, well, I take the whole entire document, copy it into Word, make my changes, and then drop it back into Google Docs so that the editors can see it. Because when I'm scrolling, if there's a lot of comments, which there generally are, from the editors, I miss them. It jumps up and down on the screen, and that drives me absolutely potty. So I have to do it in Word, and then, like I say, cut and paste over. You don't lose anything doing that. Word's able to deal with a lot more document, a lot more words. So for a 50k, sorry, a 100,000 book, Google Docs would throw an absolute fit if it had to deal with 100,000 words and editorial comments and changes, track changes, everything else like that. So the books tend to be split into two. But Word, I have found you can go up to about 100,000 words in a Word document before you start getting issues. And the issues I find with Word are that spell check stops working, which is not a good thing. So you can think, yeah, my document's perfectly clear because I obviously have the red wavy lines to show me that I'm making errors on, and I found that they disappeared after a certain number of words, which was roughly around 100,000, which is incredibly frustrating because you think you've cleaned your document up, you've done you've done your check, you've done a quick read through, but you're so close to it anyway that you're going to struggle to spot any mistakes that really jump out, which would jump out to a normal person, a reader or an editor, someone who hasn't had their head down in this world for so long. And then you send it off to the editor and the publisher, and they're like, "Are you sure this is ready?" Oops. So, yeah, that's one thing to watch out for if you're writing any kind of long document at all. Got you, Cloudy. Lower native resolution on your monitor because you're showing your desktop and not an app window. Be interesting to see. I would have to look at my stream and see what other people are seeing on the monitor. Right, let's go live. Play. Okay, I see what you mean. It's teeny tiny, isn't it? Or if I go to view, zoom 200%. Okay, it's a couple of seconds behind. This is weird. Boom. Right, and then F full screen. How's that for you, Zach? Is that better? Cloudy, sorry. Yeah, right, okay, so if I then just... Oh, God, yeah, you can see how many stories I've got open right now. Go to the chapter plan. Come on. Right, okay. Let's do that. Oh Lord, there you go. My computer is now going, oh my God, you're asking me to do too many maths. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 equals 12. Come on, here it goes. This is what I work with, unfortunately. Let's just do that. Try the zoom slider. which for some reason I've never used before. I don't know why. I always like to go through the keyboard short or through the toolbar, but as has been pointed out by Cloudy, I can just go to the right. However, annoyingly, it's crashed again. Well, it hasn't crashed. I just got a very old Lenovo T430. I got it just for writing, and then I thought, ooh, why don't I try doing streaming of my writing? And unfortunately, right, oh god, that's so big. It's 188%. There we go. Is that a thumbs up from Cloudy? Yeah, I'm going to use a emoticon. I don't actually know what it does. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Right. Oh God Almighty, this is huge. Hello to my second viewer, whoever that is. Say hi in the chat, just so I know. Although, oh, actually, no, it's probably me, isn't it? Right. Okay. So what I need to do, move on over to the character sheet. Oh, no, I've been an idiot. Right, so I'm just going to copy all this down in. Basically, I've got the chapter plan here. There we go. Lazy way of doing it, but at least it means I can. So this is the actual document. The series title would be the actual document. Come here. Boom. Yikes. Okay, it's actually quicker doing that on that slider, so thanks, Caddy. Right, okay, so I'd like to show you some how I kind of do the kind of the RPG aspect of the game. Everything does damage. I'm not sure what she's shooting at here. So this is how I do all the call-outs, all the notifications which you would get whilst playing the game normally. It's kind of based off, I don't know, any sort of game where you see damage being knocked off. So unlike, you don't tend to see it in first-person shooters. So in Ghost Recon, they don't do it at all. You shoot somebody, they die. But you might see it in any typical RPG side of things. I believe they do it in Badlands, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I've just taken elements and done it the way I think I would like to see the notifications come up. Typically, if I'm playing, for example, I play a lot of Call of Duty Warzone. I only really want to see, for example, if and they do it graphically. So if someone's armor is stripped, there's a noise, and you can see that they've had, you know, a little graphic comes up to show that their armor's been destroyed, which means they're easier to kill. I could do that, but if I did that, I'd have to call it armor break image or something else like that, which is boring, doesn't really work. So I've kind of gone for this, and these notifications come up on retinal monitors. So basically every person in this world has a retinal monitor, so that they can see everything going on. So I think Google glasses, or what they're called, Google's goggles, but basically on the eye, so everything happens. Everyone has their name above, and kind of one of the social aspects is you never assume, you never walk up to someone and just use their name without having been first introduced. Okay, so everyone has a name above their head. Everyone has statuses above their head. So you can see here, she's actually fighting a drone. So I actually know where she is in this now. She's on the 1 mile, fighting a drone as part of one of the missions, side missions that she's kind of taken on. And these are status effects. So blast has caused the blast has caused 5% damage here. It's caused 8% damage here. Everyone has 100% health. Okay, and weapons, illnesses, poison, etc. all take that health down. So it doesn't matter how strong or fit or whatever else someone is. They all have 100% health unless they're ill. And if they're ill and they've got kind of side effects and they haven't been able to use nanites to heal themselves, or find someone to heal, etc., then obviously they're going to be slightly less better off, but they're still suffering 8% of whatever damage or whatever health they have. So even if they have what someone might view as 50% health, it's still doing 8% of that. It's just easier for me to keep the math in my head. Yeah, see, so here she's killed her first drone, and as soon as you kill something or do something for the first time, you know, like that, you get a title, you get kill notifications. I'll actually be changing this because whilst I was writing the first book, obviously things have come up, so all this has to change. Now that is going to, armor is going to be changed to what I call soak. Killer, I'm going to change to drone hunter, for example. There you go. So defend the citizen against the drones. Do accept, yes, no. That's how the message prompt comes up, and you can either blink accept, or, you know, a lot of people reach out and press the yes. In this world, no one ever presses no. There's a lot of urban legends about what happens if you press no, and so people don't press no. It's just one of those things that doesn't happen, and it forms the basis of the story. Colours, trying to help people who would kill her in any other situation. Just have to find out. So SAS, that's basically my version of a character sheet, and what we don't do is view someone else's character sheet or SAS without permission. It's play on the word of "don't sass me," basically. But it's their social standing score, and, you know, their skill sheet, and everything else like that. I was originally going to be doing tables and stuff in it, like, you know, typical character sheet that you would find in any roleplay game, but Kindle does not like tables, so we're currently working out how to kind of display, or what to display. Here, every contestant is given a number up to 1 million, because there are 1 million people, like I said, in this Blood Royale. Let's just add that bit. There's his in this case. So glyphs appear, their status effects. So this is actually, even in the first book, these are all chapters I've written. Maybe it's the Merc Rebels. Yeah, so that's not actually chapter 1 at all. I don't even know where that is. I use these. These aren't ever going to be in the book because obviously they're spoilers, but they're kind of memory prompts for me. What do they do? You know, etc., etc. So why I did that, I don't know. So this is going to be the new chapter 1. Obviously that doesn't happen. I don't know why I wrote that. That's a bit stupid of me. This bit does screw up with my word count. Whoa! That's bizarre. I don't know why the text has done that big, because it's not that big in 22. Let's go with 12. 12, yep. I tend to write times in Roman just because it's easier. It also gives you better lines. That's the whole point of serifs. They create definite lines. If you write in a font which doesn't have what's called a serif, so a serif is these sort of little bits here on the E, for example, and they help you define a nice line all the way across. Very helpful when you've got a lot of text. If you don't do that and you use non-sans serif, as they're called, your eyes can travel. So I always just use this, and also as one of the preferred fonts for editors as well. Normally double spaced, etc. But for me, I just find it right now. I'll put the double spacing in later, but I just write up here. Stream of consciousness going on. But yeah, so that's basically what I do and how I do it. Some of the projects I'm on, and I'm going to call it a day for now. I'll probably be back on a bit later, but I just thought I'd actually get a video up and out with me and my writing process, and the projects that I'm working on and everything else like that. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.